Hello and welcome to Builders. I'm your host, Lee Haynes, and today we're exploring leadership, engineering, and the fast-changing reality of AI. My guest is Kamyar Gilak, a former tech lead and software engineering manager at Bosch, and now co-founder at Oxium Hub Limited. Kamyar has spent years building engineering teams, driving technical hiring, and helping developers navigate an increasingly complex landscape. He brings a blend of deep technical expertise, people-focused leadership, and a strong commitment to responsible, sustainable tech. We'll discuss purposeful team building, staying adaptable as careers evolve, hiring in the age of AI, and what responsible leadership looks like when technology shapes not just business, but society and the future of work. So Kamyar, a warm welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Thank you for having me, and pleasure on my side being here.
Well, thanks for joining us. Like I said, let's get into it, shall we? Tell us where it all started for you. What drew you to software engineering and to where you are today?
I started 18 years ago after my university, which was same context, software engineering. And towards my career, I started developing from a back-end engineer to full stack by time when the front-end engineering evolves, like after 2011, 2012. And I participated in a different team and try to learn a different technology by these years.
Nice. And can you share a little bit about the leadership philosophies that have shaped you most as a tech lead now and also as an engineering manager?
Yeah, sure. My leadership philosophy is kind of simple. Clarity, trust, and ownership. I believe that clarity gives people a direction, and trust will give them enough freedom to choose, and ownership will give them a purpose. When I stepped into the engineering management role, I realized that teams are rarely failing because of a technical skill, but mostly they fail because of the unclear expectation, misalignment, fear of ownership. And what I focused heavily was on the psychological safety and the soft skill for the people, to give them this freedom to go towards this path. And people should feel safe to challenge idea and admit their mistakes and experience towards their path and learn from them. My job as a leader is basically not to have the answer, but to shape the atmosphere that the team can provide the answer, or the answer emerge from it, basically.
Yeah, a nice little philosophy triangle there. It sounds good. So you've seen tech organizations like evolve at different scales. What lessons have kind of stayed with you and about building teams with them, with a purpose?
Team with a purpose, I would say, don't just deliver. So the purpose is highly important to be built inside a team. So with the purpose, they can solve the problem and they can transform things and do some improvement towards the delivery. The biggest lesson I learned is that purpose must be embedded in the daily work, not written somewhere on the wall or slides like this is the purpose of the company. And when people having a purpose and connected to that will normally can see distribute behavior towards them. They make better decisions on their own. So again, they do the ownership. They collaborate inside the team, so they do not start competing each other, because that will, again, could be another reason of the failure of the team. And they would be resilience towards the difficult situation. So I would say purpose can create energy, energy can create momentum, and momentum can create impact towards the team development and the delivery.
And when the team kind of has that purpose, how do you approach kind of aligning talent, aligning culture and business outcomes? Because especially when these forces, let's face it, they don't always move in the same direction, right? So how do you go about approaching them?
Yeah, exactly. So these three forces will have really same speed, and the leader should be, or the leader's job is to be the translator between these. My approach towards this is, let's align the talents with the strengths, not like their job title or what they. So you see the strengths among the people and the teammates, then you should align it with the tasks they are going to deliver. And shape the culture with the intention. So values should be operational and tangible. And what is more important, as I have also experienced with the business team, is the business outcomes should be visible and tangible and measurable. So people can move faster when they see the measurable metrics, and then they can make decisions. And when they don't align, I ask myself the question of what decision create long-term health for the team, and not just short-term wins. And based on that answer, it will be possible to define a process of sustainable success for the team.
And while on this topic of leadership, many leaders talk about creating learning-driven environments, right? What does that mean for you in practice? Be it kind of mentorship loops or kind of postmortems or pair learning, whatever it might be. What does that look like for you in practice?
Very well question. I believe that what we need to accept, that the failure is part of learning process. So we should provide the environment in a way that people and the team members can safely fail, and then they don't start to pretend that everything is perfect, which is not be possible in any time. So everything cannot be perfect. So when you provide the structure and the culture where learning is safer than pretending, so then several things can happen. Like juniors will get encouragement that to experience fail and fail safety. So fail safely, and seniors and juniors mentoring as part of their identity, and so they will be very confident to mentor the others, because they can also make a mistake and they will learn from this process. And retrospectives focus on insight, not on a blame. So you should fail. You will get an insight about your ability and the team ability, and you can learn from it. And then we can start celebrating the improvement and not just release of some features. And I understand the learning-driven team doesn't ask like how fast we can deliver, but like how fast can we learn and adapt and deliver.
Yep.
So for me also, if I don't learn, if I don't keep myself curious towards the path, that will be end of the career of the software engineer.
Yeah, no, I think it's that kind of learning mentality, isn't it? Teams should be encouraged to experiment with the risk of
Exactly.
failing, right? They should be scared to fail. It's more about kind of how do they learn, or kind of how do they know how to review, essentially. And talking of reviewing, I think, AI tools is making it cheaper, much cheaper to ship something, right, quickly. And with that, differentiation often comes from how fast teams learn and adapt, right? Not just how fast they code. And recent studies on AI coding assistants show, big productivity gains, but also note that teams need strong review and learning practices to avoid, fast mistakes at scale. We've said that mistakes is fine, but fast mistakes at scale when they can be avoided is maybe something to kind of keep an eye on. So, I mean, my point is, when AI accelerates kind of output, how do you make sure teams don't lose, engineering judgment or craftsmanship and still do stuff that really matters?
Okay, so I can I think my career of a software engineering is also as a software system. Like with the software system, you need kind of three more main important factor. You need a continuous improvement, you need structured learning, and also periodic refactoring. So when you have a goal, you should have a plan for reaching that goal, but that wouldn't be just enough. You should have review your plan each time, get a retrospective of what you have done correctly and you have not done correctly, and so you need to have a plan for your plan each period. What I think would be helpful is staying hands-on. So, like you build small prototypes, follow the AI and architecture trend, and consume lots of content from the other founders, mentors, and engineers, leaders, and stay curious. So we have an old saying that you should be like a water. When it is flowing, it will find its path to flow the direction. Maybe it will reach the obstacle, but it will find the other path to flow, and it will make its own path. So when you stay curious, you would, with a high chance, find your path that you are fitting in.
And I think you mentioned a point, curiosity there, right? And essentially staying relevant. This is on my kind of based on my next question. I think as engineering roles are shifting quickly, how do you personally stay relevant and stay curious and impactful as these kind of expectations around the role might evolve? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is also a bit tough as a software engineer. And in a software engineering or software industry, things evolve very fast, especially in recent years. So you see a tool of AI, for example, coming every hour, not even every day. So what I started shaping in my own way is like a T-shape engineering. My rule of thumb for that is if you are in an early career stage, so you explore broadly and learn about different things, find your spot of the that you get or got your curiosity more. And if you are in your mid-career level, then you should start doing the specialization deeply. So you should be deep in one or two topic and deep enough you have something to say in that area. And as a senior, you again need to start browsing again to become cross-functional and a strategic decision maker, to get to know the different area and how to connect things, not just go deeper and deeper in one area, because it may evolve and it may change. And the question is not which one should I be, but what shape of skill does my team and industry need for me right now? And then based on that, I can shape myself.
I think it's a really, really interesting point, because I always feel like there's this tension between specialization and becoming more of a generalist, right? And I sometimes wonder, if that kind of framing is a bit of like for me, like this false dichotomy, right? Because I feel it's similar to what you're saying. Like a lot of strong engineers ultimately end up being T-shaped, right? So they understand a bit about a lot, but also genuinely strong in one area where they may, like you said, have focused broadly earlier on in their career and then kind of, focused in a specific area as they moved into or experienced different roles in different organizations. Do you also see it then as more as a spectrum, as opposed to, okay, should I specialize or should I become a generalist? And if you see it more as a spectrum, how do you think people should find their place on it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe I do. So, what I can, or what I told to myself is, you don't need to master every new technology, because that would be basically impossible. You don't have enough time to do everything. And instead, you should strengthen your fundamental topic, and like architecture, like data structure, like a distributed system, and the concepts of or different concepts in a software technology and software engineering, because the concept won't change. The tool may change, but the concepts may evolve, may develop, but not that rapidly. And then definitely we should observe and learn one of the emerging domain deeply. And what is very useful in the past years is the using of AI to accelerate your learning path. It is really providing a good tooling for accelerating things. And what also benefited me is focusing on the problem solving and not just a tool. Like if you just concentrate on a tool, it may change, it may deprecate, but yeah, the problem solving and the mindset won't.
Some good concrete tips there, and kind of staying, or how to kind of stay relevant. But you've also fairly recently moved from a large industrial organization in Bosch, right, into building your own venture. I'm just interested to hear what you maybe. What did you unlearn from big company engineering, and what did you bring with you deliberately into Oxium Hub?
Yeah, unfortunately, in the big companies, and I think it is based on my also previous experience of being in a large scale companies, decision making is very challenging and very slow. So even though they try to make a management flat, trying to apply a different structure, but still you have a very slow decision making patterns. And when you have like smaller team, then the lean process, lean decision making structure would benefit from that. Then you can like move quite faster and not with many approvals towards your path and too many complication and like explanation why this should happen and why not. And so you need to spend, for example, 3 months to prove something, which you need to just develop in 1 week. And it's like 3 months of um, administration for 1 week of implementation. That makes things hard. But yeah, there were some other benefits, like you have a big team, different support. So it's really depending on the approach, and I am happy to work in a different team, but the main thing would be open mindset towards the new things and change, because the software industry is about how you can make decision fast towards the change and adapt.
And is that something that you've been able to bring with you from, say, Bosch, for example, or is there any specific, way of working or engineering way of working that you on a daily basis kind of implement in your current workplace as well? Just interested to hear, because you've moved into your kind of own venture now. It's a very different animal, right? So, what kind of ways of working are you still kind of putting into practice today?
Yeah, sure. I would say the soft skill and how you can define this soft skill to communicate, defining the atmosphere and the culture of the team communication, and what can be successful process, because giant processes can't move fast and small processes cannot deliver very much. So you need to find a good area what suits you better based on your purpose, and adjust it based on when you are moving on, adjust it based on your targets.
Let's talk a little bit about AI and hiring and the future of work, because you've been deeply involved in technical hiring for several years now. What patterns or challenges have stood out to you during that time?
Yeah, that like unfortunately there are two sides of these processes: who are applying for a job and who wants the application. And the unfortunate part is both parts are suffering because
Right.
of heavy processes on one side, like ATS systems, long response time from the companies. You get sometimes unclear answer, an automated answer that thank you for applying and you are not fit. And on the other side, so as a hiring manager, you're also struggling to find a good fit. So you open a position, you receive hundreds of applications, even though with the filters, and there needs a tremendous amounts of time to be spent. And here is what I really valued is help of the recruitment industry. That's helping us providing the quality applicants that we are targeting, and also transferring this process into the humanized way for the applicants as well. So it was like a bridge towards both sides to reduce this pain on both sides. And that is what I really valued mostly.
And I want to talk to you a bit about how kind of AI is changing all of this as well. Really, to begin with, on the applicant side here, on the engineers side, because AI is changing how engineers, how developers work, right? And in particular, I think many junior developers, as they're called, worry about being replaced, for example. But I mean, the reality is, like, we're seeing less AI replaces developers and more kind of AI changes the entry ramp. I think for someone learning to become a developer now, it can feel quite daunting. I can imagine, like, the kind of ladder is moving somewhat, right? Do you think the kind of barrier to entry is rising, or it's just changing shape? What's your advice for starting somewhere when AI can already do so much?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, I am also receiving this quite a lot in like different conferences and like on my LinkedIn, that will AI replace the developers? I don't see it that way. So I see AI as a tool, a very good tooling. But AI can do several things, but cannot do also several things, which I try to explain. But I try to tell them is AI will not replace the developer, but the developer who are not using the AI will be replaced with the ones who don't.
Mm.
Yeah, so AI automation and the automate tooling will do the repetitive coding, will do like provide you testing, but on the other side will not provide you the creativity, like problem solving and decision making, the architecture structure, and how would be the best for the current situation. So this is not what AI, at least at the moment, can do.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Like, those using the tools will most likely be able to replace those not using it or kind of resistant to those tools, right? But if AI is already in the toolbox from day one, for these wanting to kind of enter the field, what do you think a great kind of let's put it this way: what do you think a great kind of junior developer curriculum might look like in 2026, for example?
Yeah, what I would say is like a system thinking, architecture and design skill, improving their knowledge about the data structure, and also AI tooling fluency and communication and problem solving thinking and product thinking. So AI may write codes, but I think human can decide what to build and what not to build, basically.
Yeah, importantly, what not to build, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And how has, in your view, how has AI changed the hiring process itself? Both in how candidates present themselves and how teams evaluate them.
I believe AI changed both sides in a both good and bad direction. So there are like some candidates that fake coding. But there are also some candidates who use the right tooling to have some improvement and faster learning. So candidates now show more prototypes and faster work and let's say AI assisted project, which is really good. And on the other side, like hiring manager can also do more with automated or with using the automation structure of the AI and focus more on reasoning and the decision-making skill beside just like doing repetitive tasks. So we evaluate how a candidate use AI as part of their workflow, and AI can maybe like generate you a fake code, but it cannot fake a clarity, a curiosity, and um, engineering knowledge you could have, and you cannot hide behind the fake code.
No, not for long, at least. And from your perspective, what parts of software development will continue to be augmented most by AI, and which areas do you think will continue to demand this kind of strong human judgment?
Yeah, there are some areas that maybe not very interested also by the developers, like documenting the topic,
Mm.
writing the tests, and um, some automated code generation also possible.
Yep.
Maybe DevOps pipeline can be optimized, and UI generation, which is also very time consuming, would be possible. So these time consuming tasks can be done with augmented AI, which could be very beneficial. But on the other side, like human, some things that needs human tastes on this, like judgment of the human, like architecture, like traits of a decision making, like a security, compliance,
Mm.
product strategy, soft skill like team communication, and decision making would not be affected by AI. So I think software engineering will become more about designing the system and leading the change than just typing a code,
Mm.
which would be even more interesting.
Yeah, really well put. Let's talk now a little bit about ethics and sustainability, and also kind of responsible technology, because you've spoken, I believe, about circular IT operations, responsible AI, and like this cognitive sustainability. So we'll dive into these concepts a little bit more. But why do these concepts matter for the future of engineering teams?
Yeah, sure. Because scales without responsibility, I believe, is very dangerous. So circular IT reduces waste and cost for the team. Responsible AI reduces unintended harm towards the team and the whole structure of the team. So cognitive sustainability protects the mental well-being of the engineering team, and you cannot build high performance culture on a burnout or ethical shortcuts.
Hmm.
So future proof organization invest in sustainability not because it is trendy but because it is a strategic decision.
Hmm. And in practice, I mean, um, what's one kind of circular IT move, let's say, that sounds small but creates this kind of huge sustainability or kind of cost impact in real engineering organizations? Are there any kind of examples that you can draw on?
um, I believe the trust will be built on three main uh, concepts. So, like transparency, traceability, and accountability. So, people trust technology when they understood it. So, and then they can use it.
Hmm.
And when they can verify it, and when humans take responsibility for the consequences. So, and it is also part of some AI discussions that what if AI can take some part which we cannot predict the consequences. And I think the trust is not communication strategy. It's like operational model that you need to shape based on the strategic decisions of these three pillars.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting point. Like, how can tech leaders build and or kind of maintain this digital trust, right? I mean, specifically in this kind of era of synthetic content, automated decision making. I mean, how can tech leaders do this in practice?
Yeah, so that area is, I think, very personalized opinion of myself. So I think AI can handle some repetitive work, and human should define some strict rules and compliancy towards what AI should do and should not do, and should be used and not be used, which would be a bit hard. And I would believe that human focused on, again, creativity, problem solving, and collaborations, and teams are built on psychological safety and continuous learning. So we should keep the human part and the human taste of the team, and maybe just define what AI can do in a repetitive and argumented way.
And to talk more about that kind of human side of it then, because you mentioned earlier this cognitive sustainability, it's essentially about protecting people's mental bandwidth, right, as a resource, kind of avoiding this constant overload or tool sprawl or attention fragmentation. So that the teams and so that these individuals can think clearly long term, right? But as kind of AI and different tools kind of add more noise and more options, more complication maybe into the everyday, how do leaders keep teams focused, healthy, and able to do, deep and meaningful work?
Very fair question, and I believe a bit challenging to answer, because that is a challenging moment with the emerging of the AI tooling. So everybody try to shine based on backing with AI tooling. Some part of it would be good. Some part of it, if it is not faking something, would if it is faking something, it would not be good. So as a leader, you need to start realizing and putting the focus for the human focused and human centered targets for the team. Hey, develop your problem solving. You can use AI to fasten and accelerate your process, but don't use it to fake something. So this is some tools that mainly needs to, like you as a leader need to create a culture that use this emerging structure as a tool to improve, not to ruin the team atmosphere for competing each other and using that I'm shinier than you. Yeah.
And when you imagine the future of work, or the work in your area, in your field, not just technologically, but ethically and socially as well. What does it look like to you, or rather, what does an equitable or conscious and sustainable future look like to you?
You mean in the area of the AI?
Yeah, in your field,
Okay.
in the era of AI, but specifically in the software engineering.
I see. Software engineering is, I believe, one of the expensive areas. So you need to invest a high amount of time and energy to build one software product. And it needs a high collaboration among the team involved, the different team. That is, from one side, very interesting, and on the other side, for the business, very costly. So if we can reduce this cost meaning time and definitely the money, with AI handling some repetitive work, that will definitely benefit the business side. So you will have the prototype in a faster, less expensive way and go to market very faster to see, to test if the product is beneficial for the people and get the feedback. And on the other side, people can concentrate more on the human side of it, like as mentioned, like problem solving, how you can develop the creativity, collaboration among the team, and together with using a tool in the right way, you can deliver something in a less costly way, in faster, and maybe even higher quality to the business and to the people who are acquiring it.
And do you think leaders should, like generally speaking, do you think they should draw like hard lines today, like when it comes to, automation or kind of sensitive data? And if so, kind of how? I mean, for example, automation should not touch this part of the organization, for example. It's
Um,
quite a general question. I get that, but just
yeah,
generally speaking.
I see. So I believe generally there is no very strict hard line in no concept. So you cannot define what is really good or what is really bad. It's based on the situation.
Mm.
Sometimes a solution cannot be appealing for the situation, and sometimes one solution and tooling can be very good for the different situation. And you should be open-minded, open to change, and see the problem clearly. So first thing is to identify a problem, and based on that, with very open-minded, not with any background of which tool can be good, to discover the tooling and choose it. So I don't believe any strict line can benefit any team, to be honest. So you should be open-minded and flexible to receive the new solutions. And that is what I learned through these years. Always be open-minded and open for the new solutions.
Yeah, well put. And as we look to wrap up here, I'd just like to look ahead a little bit and ask you, when you look, say, 3 to 5 years ahead, what developments in engineering are you most excited about? Like, what ones do you feel are going to be genuinely kind of game changing?
I can say definitely the AI has surprised many of us in past years. And how the generative AI can generate content, but still, I'm quite looking forward to use the correct tooling to provide a better software for people who needs it in a faster way. So that is what interests me the most and encourage me towards doing better with the better tooling.
And is there any kind of, one shift that you think will kind of reshape how teams will kind of build software? Whether it might be agentic tooling or these new ways of collaborating across teams and geographies or whatever, or even like whether we're tackling different kinds of problems. What would you put your money on if there was kind of this one shift in how teams build software?
Yeah, a bit challenging to answer. So for me, as the hard part of like this time-consuming part can be processed by AI, the agentic AI can provide you the pipeline. So you can define a pipeline for the agentic AI that what from the input until the output that you are expected, you define the pipeline, so it will do the automation. And for example, when you apply for the very tangible example related to our context, when you, as a applicant, when you start applying, you need to start filling the form of each company, and it is quite time consuming, like 30 minutes for each form, lots of questions. There are tools now that you can define your pipeline, of defining a specific pipeline and answer which is personalized for you. And this will be done based on your CV and your answer, which you do one time. And each time you do beside 30 minutes for one form, it will do in a 30 seconds for one application. So you need to recognize what can be automated and do the automation to not waste time for repetitive tasks, but invest your time to learn and improve. Because I believe what we are in shortage is basically time. So what we cannot have it again.
Yeah. And you maybe just mentioned it there, but that's like the last question from me, just because it feels like the technologies and tools out there will keep changing, but the ability to think clearly, learn fast, and build with intent might be, let's say, the real long-term advantage. It's more for engineers listening who might feel overwhelmed by the pace of change. What's one mindset or habit that you think will matter most for staying relevant in the future?
Curiosity, I believe. So what helped me the most is the curiosity and the starving to learn new things. So it's like you always be open-minded and be open to onboard yourself with a new technology. And it's the moment that you think that you are knowledgeable person and enough in the industry, it is the moment that would be end of your career, because this industry needs adaptive and learning by time and evolving and developing your knowledge towards different things.
Yeah, indeed. I think you mentioned it there, kind of knowledge, right? I think knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, right? But wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad, as the saying goes. It's turning knowledge into applied knowledge, right?
True.
Fantastic. Anything to add, Kamyar, before I wrap up?
Not in a specific. Thanks for having me, and it was a pleasure on my side.
Likewise, thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for a really thoughtful conversation. I think your perspective on leadership and career growth, responsible AI, is incredibly timely, right? Especially as teams everywhere grapple with rapid change. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you too.
And
appreciate it.
To our listeners, thanks for joining us on Builders. Don't forget to subscribe for more conversations with the people shaping the future of tech and work. I'm Lee Haynes, and until next time, keep building. We'll see you soon.